Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezel here, and we have a naval update. Yes, Navy updates are here, and it is the Russians that come out next, to no big surprise. Once the Project 1124 MLRS was added recently, which I did a video of, feel free to look back on that one, which is basically a T-34 with a Katyusha strapped to the back of it, we knew that the Russian ships would be coming in pretty quickly. But now we actually have a Russian tech tree here to look at. So the Russian tech tree goes as follows. You start off with the G5. Now the G5, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a tiny little boat. Customization, that's what I wanted to look at, which almost looks like a submarine. Yes, it is a tiny little submarine boat. It is an awesome looking thing. Not very stable at all. This is not a very seaworthy ship. It's basically all enclosed because, well, it's going to get a lot of waves coming over it. The top here, I imagine, will be getting a lot of splashes coming through, basically. A very low profile ship, has got a Dushka on top, so you've got an okay gun, but you do only have one of them, so you are going to struggle a little bit, much like the German reserve little boat. Sorry, I was just looking at the intricacies of the boat there for a second. It's just the way it was stepping in a little bit through the side. It looked like it hadn't been rendered properly, but no, that's just the way it is. You can sort of see, if you look at the x-ray here, there's basically nothing back here but the propeller shafts. The engines are all up front. You carry 2 torpedoes at the back. And that's pretty much it, really. It's pretty basic, a pretty basic little torpedo launcher. As I said, the most interesting thing about it is it does look like a submarine, and boy do we wish it was a submarine. Okay, next up we have the D3. Now the D3 is your sort of standard patrol boat. You've got 2 Dushkas and 2 torpedoes, and they are side launching torpedoes by the looks of it. Yes, so they will be pushed off the side and then they'll go floating forwards. I imagine this has got depth charges. Yep, depth charges are an option. It does have them actually. Well, it's got the reserve depth charges there. It doesn't actually have them in the launcher, so we can see depth charges, we just can't use them. Just a very basic wooden sort of, imagine wooden patrol boat, mainly close shore support, maritime patrol, possibly rivers, but mainly offshore maritime patrols. Then we have the Project 123 bis. Now this almost looks like the starting boat. Again, it sort of has a slight sort of submarine-ish look about it, if you take the torpedo tubes off, that is. But with this boat you have many Dushkas. You have 4 Dushkas, in fact, as well as 2 450mm torpedo tubes, and these are front launchers, so they will shoot the torpedoes out the front, go ahead of you, and basically try and hit what you're looking for. Again, a very basic sort of close sort of shore support, maritime support vehicle, relatively good speed. It's more of a very close sort of short support vehicle, and it is that sort of motor torpedo boat design. Okay, next up we have the Project 123K. Forgive my pronunciation. Komsomolets. And this we have an interesting design. It's metal, as you can see. It's all riveted steel, or riveted whatever it is, possibly, yeah, probably steel or aluminium or something like that. Offering no armour value though, so it's not very thick. It's probably, you know, 1 inch, quarter inch steel. It's not very thick steel at all, so it's going to give no armor protection. Basically, this is just your pure motor torpedo boat. This thing is designed to just go fast and hard at larger ships, launch torpedoes, and then get the hell out of there. The gun is purely there for defensive anti-aircraft use. It's placed at the back here, so you're not going to be able to shoot things from the front. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to use. This is a bit more of a modern vehicle, I imagine, just because of the doesn't look like it's a radar system on board, so I imagine this is a slightly more modern vehicle, just from the look of it. just because of the sensors. I might be wrong, because I don't know my Russian boats too well. But being that it's metal, again, I would say it's probably a slightly more modern vehicle. A decent speed though, maximum speed of 52 miles per hour, so this is a very fast boat. So this will be very fast, hit hard, you have to hit quickly, you're not going to be able to do much else other than sort of launch torpedoes. You can't really rely on the guns with this boat. And this is a sort of common part of this line, and these are all your torpedo boats mainly. Now we have the OD 200. This is a close maritime support vehicle, but this thing has a lot more guns on board. Again, primarily anti-aircraft role, but you can be used for other things as well, of course. You've got a 37mm 70k cannon at the back, and then twin Dushkas here. Again, wooden boat, probably used for sort of sub-chasing more than anything. This is what these kind of boats were used for, going around sort of keeping the S boats and things like that at bay and dropping depth charges, basically causing problems. But it's not really a boat that's meant for fighting other boats predominantly. You're not going to be fighting other boats really that much. Has got a little bit of armor on there for the gunners, but nothing special. You know, you've got basically, if you're being shot at this section here, your captain may well be standing out in this section. However, you have got a bridge down here as well, but most likely your commanding officer will be on deck giving orders, and so if you're being shot by another boat here, you're not going to last too long. So we will move along. Next up we have the Mo 4. Now again, this is a sort of this is more of a boat hunting boat. So as you can see here, we've got the 45mm 21k cannons on board, and then twin Dushkas, which is a common feature. Now this type of boat would have been used more for like sort of harbour support, things like that, going out local waters, not too deep. It would be capable of slightly rougher seas, but you wouldn't want to be going too far out with it. However, having those 45mm guns on board does mean it has got some attack power. So this will be quite a brutal boat at range, but you won't really want to go in too close. It's not a knife fighting style ship. The 45mm there is not, from what I can tell, it's not a fast loading gun. Looks like it's breech loaded. So basically it's just one round in, push, fire, one round in, push, fire. So it's going to take a little bit of time to reload. It's not got magazines or anything like that. And again, we have loads and loads of depth charges that we won't be able to use for a while. Again, most likely would have been used for support roles, escorting into harbours and stuff like that, and possibly submarine chasing. We have the BMO, so the Armoured Subchaser. So as you can see, they're labelled as subchasers. So yeah, that's pretty much what they're used for in the real world. So the BMO is where you start getting some decent armour. You're also starting to get some decent guns on board. So you've got a 45mm 21k cannon. You've got a 37 70k cannon at the back. But this doesn't allow you to fight other ships. Now, with the front cannon, it is magazine fed. So again, it means it's going to get some decent firepower. So you're actually going to be able to fire at rapid speeds. You also have twin, say it with me, Dushkas. Actually, no, it's not twin Dushkas. We've got a Dushka and an ANM2 machine gun, which would be this one at the back here. That's thrown me off. Why have they done that? The ANM2 is just a slightly faster firing machine gun, if I remember correctly. But same sort of rounds, basically just an anti-aircraft gun. So this is anti-aircraft, this is more for shooting other boats and things like that. So again, and chasing submarines, of course. But one thing with this boat is it does have some decent armour. So you're starting to get some armour on boards with these boats. Again, close water support, things like that. Coastal support roles. Now we have the MPK PR122A Subchaser. And this is where we start getting to a slightly bigger ship, almost sort of Corvette style size. And this thing is a relatively interesting looking boat. You've got a decent 76mm gun at the front, encased in a turret. So again, you'll be able to do some relatively good stuff front on. As you can see, if we just turn that off, it is breech loaded, but you've got the gunner and loader sitting in there, so it will be relatively decent firing. Now this is a big boat, but it does have a lot of Dushka machine guns on board, and also it looks like it's actually got mortar launchers there as well. Doesn't look like you'll be able to use the mortar launchers, but they are on board, so that is interesting. So got some mortars just located there, and again I imagine that would be for submarine use more than anything, and then you've got, of course, your depth charges. So submarine chaser, submarine hunter, sort of, you know, again, this is a bit of a bigger boat, of course. It's going to be relatively slower to move around, and it's going to be a pretty big target, in all honesty. The problem with this style of boat is you're going to be in very close quarters fighting, and if you're fighting up against a S-boat that has got lots of machine guns, they're just going to be able to spray you and take you out relatively quickly. The sheer amount of the Dushka machine guns are going to help a lot at the back, and having that big heavy gun at the front will be useful, but you're still going to have that little bit of trouble. Yeah, good luck with it, basically. Finally, on this line, we have the MPK 163. And this is the sort of most advanced sort of sub-chaser in the line. This is obviously a sort of modern era ship, slightly more modern boat, and as you can see it's got the sort of mortar launchers at the front for sort of using probably hedgehogs. But they are just classified as mortars in the game. So you've got the mortar launchers at the front, you've got depth charges at the back, and then you've got many, many guns to look at. So first of all, frontally we have the 85mm cannon. Then we have twin Dushkas. Then at the back we have quad Dushkas. And then finally we have a 37mm cannon, along with many depth charges and of course mortars. Now this is a very big sub-chaser, this is a very big boat. This would be sort of, you know, out on the oceans looking around with its sonar and stuff like that. It wouldn't really be expected to go sort of duking it out with another boat. However, you know, you would be able to defend yourself against a sub that has surfaced, and especially if that submarine has got a gun on board. Being a sort of late, sort of, probably, I'd say this is probably about 1950s era. Maybe late 1940s, but 1950s, that sort of era. Many submarines were removing their guns, of course, so it wasn't needed as much. But you will be able to take out smaller boats with this. Sort of, you know, very small light ships will be pretty easy targets for you. These were generally for escort ships. They, you know, it's an escort sort of style boat. It's, you know, it's not for frontline fighting, and that's one of the problems we have in the Navy beta, but I won't get into that now. Okay, next up we have the PR191M. As you can see here, this is a T-34, almost, yes. So this is where we start getting our 85mm tank guns on board boats. We've also got these lovely armoured machine gun nests. So these boats are designed to not have any crew out on the open. It's designed so your crew are safely inside. It's more of a riverboat, just because of that low profile. Generally when they're very low in the water like this, it's sort of more a river craft than sort of really open oceans, and sort of used to defend sort of lakes and rivers and all that stuff. Now, as you can see, this thing has some really good armour on board. Well, I say really good armour. It's not great armour, but it is armour. So you have 7mm armour, 14mm around the bridge, and then the gun nests, 12mm, 12mm, and then we have 30mm armour. So, a relatively decent sized boat, and it's sort of got a tank turret on board, really. This is a slightly later model than some of the others that we will see in this section, which it's really weird with how boats are laid out with their BRs, because some are much more modern, yet they're a lower BR than the older ones. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So, Project 1124, 1940. So, an older style of sort of boat, again, riverboat design. Now, these were designed to go up and down riverways. That's why they're very, very narrow. And these do have T-34 turrets on board. Yeah, you've got the 76mm F-34 gun on board. Basically, this works the same as a T-34. That's it. You've got T-34 guns on there. You also have the Dushkas up here, but that's it. It's pretty heavily armoured, as you'd want it to be, because this thing could, in theory, sort of have faced tanks and things like that. Mainly it was facing, you know, other riverboats and other small boats and craft in rivers, and, you know, having to deal with bombarding shores and little things like that. But it has armour to stop light sort of machine gun fire. The turrets, of course, have tank armour on them, but it's designed to really protect the crew a bit more. So, yeah, this is where we're going now. This is more your sort of riverboat, sort of tank-gunned crafts. Next up, we have the PR1124 1945. So, with this one, we have the T-34 turrets on board, but they've gone a little bit heavier with the anti-aircraft defence by slapping a 37mm cannon on board. This one is not so crew-friendly. You can see it's an added-on section there. It's not really designed for the boat. They've basically welded some struts up from the engine bay and just gone, we're going to stick a big old cannon on there to shoot down aeroplanes, because obviously they are having trouble with aeroplanes at some stage. Not much more to say on this. Next we have the PR1204 late. Now this is a very sort of late vehicle. This would be probably around about the 60s, 70s. And it's a similar design, really. Again, this is a sort of riverboat, keeping the riverways safe in Russia and, you know, Vietnam and places like that where they sold these sort of things too. So we have on front of here a PT-76. Yeah, that's it. It's a PT-76. What more can I say about it? It's a PT-76 turret and gun strapped to the front of a patrol boat. There is also this fantastic nest of machine guns. This thing is not kidding around for basically shredding anything on a river. As you can see here, it's pretty exposed from the top. This is not for anti-aircraft. This is for basically shooting people on riverbanks. And that's it. Then finally, at the back here, we have twin 30mm autocannons. No, wait. No, they're the 25mm. They're... Wait, no, where am I? Have I missed something? They look like Dushkas to me, but I might be wrong. Oh, okay, they're the 30mm auto grenade launchers. Okay, even more interesting. Okay, then, alright. I thought they were just Dushkas placed in there. No, those are grenade launchers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So, you've got 30mm automatic grenade launchers on there, placed in this sort of formation. So yeah, for basically shelling anything on the ground, on the banks of a river that you need to be shelled, and you need to blow it up quick. So yeah, that's an interesting little feature. Now this thing, as you imagine, is pretty well armoured for a riverboat. As I say, riverboat, it's designed for small arms fire. Weirdly, the PT-76 turret is not showing up with any armour. I think somebody forgot to put the armour values in for it. But PT-76 turret armour, basically, that's what it is. The sort of front section here is a little bit exposed, but the sort of main bridge section is relatively well armoured from small machine gun fire. Unfortunately, you're not going to be facing small machine gun fire, you're going to be facing very large caliber guns, so you're going to be absolutely screwed. But this is a very interesting vehicle, and something I would really like to test out. I really just want to play with those grenade launchers. yeah, look, VOG high explosive fragmentation grenades. No penetration power whatsoever, but quite a bit of explosive mass. That's hilarious. That is just absolutely hilarious to me. You get a sort of couple of different rounds for the 25mm, basically sort of just your normal anti-aircraft sort of rounds, and the 76mm gun does not, unfortunately, does not get heat FS ammo. It just gets the 354 armor piercing, and then HE rounds, which have about 9mm of armor penetration. So yes, a ship with grenade launchers on board, that is bloody hilarious. I kind of want to see how this goes, because I love my PT-76, and this is a PT-76 for the sea. Yeah, this is hilarious. Okay, we'll move on. The MBK PR-186. Phone's just doing something. What are you doing, phone? Why are you doing stuff? Oh, God's sake. So anyway, MBK PR-186. So this has got the 85mm gun on board of the T-34-85 and the same turret as the T-34-85. So basically we know what those are going to do. Either side you've got twin Dushkas, but you also have a big 37mm anti-aircraft gun. So yeah, this thing's probably going to be pretty fun. The thing is though, they are relatively slow firing guns. The tank guns on board these boats do not fire fast. You're not going to be shooting out many rounds. Now, although you've got the big rounds of the 85mm, you're not going to be firing them out at, you know, ridiculous rates. They're not belt fed, they're not chain fed, they are basically loaded. Trying to get an X-ray view there, but really can't. They are loaded in exactly the same way, and that's breech loaded. I'm really hoping I'll actually get an X-ray view of there, but yeah, you can sort of see it's basically breech loaded. So again, it's just one in, fire, one in, fire, you know, and that takes time. So you know, you're not going to be spewing out large numbers of rounds from them, whereas other boats with high caliber guns will be shooting at faster rates than you. You're going to have penetration ability, but you're not going to have speed advantage. You do have, again, relatively good armor, 30mm of belt armor actually on this one, 20mm around the tops, and of course you have the tank turrets, so again, quite a lot of armor for the turrets. But the problem with that is you've got sort of slightly less armor around here, so all you need to do is get shot through the front here, and that's going to spray everybody in here with rounds and take you out. Still, it could be quite fun. And then finally, we have, well, finally in the regular tech tree, we have the MBK 161 1944. And again, we have some T-34 turrets on there. We have the 76mm back on this one, and then we have 37mm cannon, and another we have two 45mm guns on board as well. There we go. Yes, so two 45mm guns. So yeah, I really don't get what the designers were thinking with this boat. I guess maybe they could get the crew inside when they were being shot by machine gun rounds and get everybody out to shoot the big guns. I really don't understand the turrets. As you can see here, the turret is basically unable to... Well, I do get it. I do know what this is for. It's for basically shelling on land points. But as you can see here with the turret, you can't actually get the turret to shoot forwards or sideways, really, because there are these lovely chains around the top here, which are going to stop the turret from being able to basically be lower than this. So you can only really bombard with those turrets. You're more likely going to be using the 45mm guns here, and of course the large autocannons and the Dushkas. It's just a really weird boat. It does have very thick armour, so you sort of... I can see what's going to happen with this boat. It's basically all of the deck crew is going to get taken out, and you're just going to have your main guns, so your tank guns, and this crew sort of concealed in here, especially when you're fighting something with sort of low caliber machine guns. But you're not really going to be able to do anything to defend yourself, so it's going to be a really weird, interesting sort of design. Again, this is more of a river sort of boat. It's designed for more river areas, although it is notably a little bit more seaworthy than others. And then we have the PR1124MLRS, which is an aforementioned vehicle. This is basically a T-34 with a Katusha and then 2 Dushkas straps at the top. So yeah, interesting design. Pretty useless, but it's kind of cool, and that's all that matters. Alright, PR183. Now, if you've sort of seen an American torpedo boat, you're going to pretty much know this one. It looks very much like an Elco, and I believe it was based off one, or was one at one stage. Basically, you've got some good frontal guns. So you've got twin 25mm twin gunned turrets, and they're more for anti-aircraft, but you can be using them on boats. Let's be serious here, you know, most of the time you're not actually shooting planes, you're shooting boats with them. And then you have twin torpedo launchers. So again, it's just a fast torpedo boat designed for basically getting in there, shooting its torpedoes off, and then getting out as quickly as possible. Alrighty, next up we have the PR206, and if you've unlocked the German tech tree, you're gonna know this one as well. I think it was a Ukrainian ship. I'm trying to think. I think it was Ukraine. Basically, it never came into service from memory. You've got twin 30mm turrets, as you can see at the front and the back. Very high firing auto turrets, auto cannons, and then you have quad torpedo launchers. Again, this thing was designed to be a fast, hard attack boat. No protection whatsoever. So again, you're just going to be relying on getting those shots off. It's got a relatively big crew of 21, but still that's not a huge amount. But it is a very good fast boat. And then finally we have the PR206M, and this is actually a pretty interesting little boat. It's a hydrofoil, so that means it's underneath the water. What we can't really see at the moment are little fins. That basically means this boat goes up when it travels, and that means this thing has really good speed, so 43 miles per hour. It's also got a ridiculous big gun at the back, automised artillery system, the 57mm AK-725. Frontally, you have the 25mm twin 25mm turrets, and they are controlled by a guy that's just sitting in there and getting a face full of spray, and getting very cold out on deck as well, I imagine. You also got the quad torpedo launchers, and as I say, this is the most interesting thing for me, is this gun turret. It's kind of a nifty looking gun turret, basically. We'll be able to see a little bit better if we x-ray here. As you can see, it's quite a low sitting boat. There's your hydrofoil, and this is basically going to lift the boat up. Now, well, the disadvantage of that is your boat's going to be up in the air, so you're not going to be able to really get those guns to bear on people. It's designed for speed, for getting torpedoes in, and then this artillery system, which is just that, an artillery system. It's the high explosive shells. It's used for lobbing at things, not really used for much else. Just got very decent sort of HE shells. The front guns, of course, you will actually have some armor penetration to it, but other than that, you're just going to rely on torpedoes. Going to be an interesting sort of boat. As you can see here, this ammunition feed. This thing is going to be ludicrously fast firing, I imagine. It's just basically going to lob shells out at a ridiculous rate. Kind of want to test this thing. I kind of want to play with this thing because the automated artillery systems do kind of appeal to me because they just are very silly. Basically, the way they were used is you would just fire like a machine gun's worth of HE shells in a big, vast, spreaded area, and they would all land and just create a mass of, almost like grenades, just massive, just annihilation. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting system to use in game. Basically, it's just going to be like a machine gun firing 57mm HE shells. So that's just really going to be interesting. All right, now, you know when I said earlier that it's quite strange that many of the earlier ships are later models? Well, here we have one prime example, the PR-159. Now, this is still in service with, I think, Viet Cong Navy. There's one still in service in Syria, I think. I think one actually got sunk by the Russians in Syria because they sunk it by using it as a target boat or something for one of their planes. But anyway, this is a very modern boat, and it is a frigate. Now, the Russians only get one destroyer, unless you buy the premium destroyer, and then you get two of the same destroyer, but they only got one destroyer, which is really quite strange. Usually you have two. But this thing has the automarized artillery system, and as you can see, it has reactive fused shells in it. This is basically an anti-aircraft boat. You've got the rocket launchers as well, which so you have got a rocket launcher involved. Yeah, 64 mortars. Okay, interesting. And you also have torpedoes. Just trying to find out where those rocket launchers are sitting. I cannot spot them. No, that will be interesting. I'll have to see where that comes from once it's equipped. So yes, you have got rockets on this boat as well. It's a bit of a they wait. That is, yeah, is that rocket launched torpedoes, depth charges? Yes. As you can see, I did my research here. It's a mortar, so yeah. Anyway, got 64 mortar shells, as well as your torpedoes, of course. The RBU-25. Okay, anyway, so you got the rocket launcher, and you got depth charges, normal depth charges, yada yada yada. But this system is going to be relatively fast firing again. So we're going to have a very fast firing gun, capable of shooting out quite a few rounds. This just here, if you can sort of look down here, you can see the belt where the shells are basically coming up. So it's a sort of belt-fed system. So you have lots and lots of shells in there. So it's going to be fast firing. So again, for basically taking out smaller craft, this thing is going to be very useful. But the problem is, you're going to be spawning in the destroyer section, so you're going to really want to get out of there fast because you have really no armor. There's no armor on this boat whatsoever, other than around the gun sections. Yeah, that must be where the mortars are launched from. Still questioning that rocket launcher. Anyway, but yeah, this is a frigate, so it's more for escorts, and it's obviously an anti-aircraft frigate as well. It does look like jet turbine engines as well. Interesting. Okay, cool. This is going to be an interesting boat to see. Steam turbine engines, maybe. It's going to be an interesting boat to see, and it is a relatively modern vehicle, made in late 50s, early 60s. Anyway, PR-7U. Yes, the Russian destroyer. And this, of course, is the non-premium variant, and it's a pretty basic destroyer. Good 130mm guns on board. It's got some sort of no real armor values again, but relatively decent guns. It has got some decent secondaries though. Secondaries, you have got some 76mm guns, so as you can see at the back here there are these lovely 76mm, and then you of course have lots and lots of anti-aircraft guns, so 7 37mm guns, and then 4 Dushkas and 2 AM-M2 machine guns, as well as having torpedoes on board as well. So quite a lot of anti-aircraft defense for this boat, but it is short-range anti-aircraft defense. The main guns, you do get the radio fuse shell, so again you can start using them for anti-aircraft purposes. They also do work really well against patrol boats, and then you also have a very good armor-piercing capped ballistic cap shell as well, and this is very good because this means you can do some very good damage at long range. The 76mm again has a very decent shell, so it can do some good secondary damage. Okie dokie. So, moving on, we have the PR-7U Stronyon. Basically the same boat, just a few less anti-aircraft guns on board. Yes, so again, not much more really can say on that one. It's not much difference. It's got the same amount of torpedo launchers as well. So yeah, there's just the premium version. It just has a few less anti-aircraft guns. It does have an extra 76mm gun, so no, we're not going to test out that. And then we have the Krasny Kavkaz. Sorry, the Krasny Kavkaz, which is the Russian cruiser. Now, you're going to look at this cruiser and think, well, this looks like a very old cruiser, and yes, it basically is. It was started in World War One. This is a very old boat, but you have some very big guns on this thing. You've got 4 180mm guns. You have 6 100mm secondary guns. Then you have sort of anti-aircraft guns of the 2 76mm guns, 2 45mm guns, 10 37mm guns, 2 Dushkas, and 2 Vickers 12.7mm machine guns, Vickers Mark V machine guns. Where are those beautiful things? There we go. There's the Vickers just at the front there. So that's the sort of quad system at the front there. Unfortunately, that's as far as I can zoom in. So yes, you got 2 of the quad system Vickers machine guns, which is basically for anti-aircraft defense and sort of, you know, small arms fire. Now this thing does have some decent armor on board. You've got 75mm belt armor. You have 20mm sort of citadel armor, which is basically engine armor. But as you can see, that 25mm armor does go above the deck as well. So from the air, it's going to be relatively hard to penetrate this thing with sort of, you know, most guns. The turrets have got some fairly decent armor on board with 25mm. The small turrets are only 8, but the main turrets are quite decently sort of thickened. And then you have the superstructure here and the conning tower, which has 125mm of armour because you need to keep the people in there safe, and that's basically where the spotters are going, where they're working out where they're shooting from and what to shoot at. So, as you can see, very decent armour. Now, X-ray wise, we can look at this and you can see that we have the fuel tanks at the bottom, some very nice big engines and boilers in the middle, and then the big guns at the back. The ammunition is stowed straight below the guns. So again, if you're shooting at this, shoot right below the guns and you should get a ammunition rack. Wasn't very well used in the war, I would say. This ship did have some action, but mainly for landing. It was used as a basically for the landings on trying to think now, and cannot think. Some landings basically in Russia. They were used for getting the ships to the getting the landing ships, and they're basically used for artillery barrages. And then in about 1943, when a couple of destroyers got sunk, Stalin said he didn't want to have any ships out there and basically called it back. And then it trained as a training vessel and then was decommissioned and scrapped in about 1953. But yeah, this is really a very... The guns are good. The 180mm guns are good. It's more of a sort of... You know, that's a very big gun. Cause, what have we got at the moment on the German cruiser? The Emden is 150mm, and then with the Trenton, you've got the 160mm guns, I think they are. I think they're 160. Never remember with inch. 6 inch is brain start working. I'm gonna have to actually look it up because my brain is really not working there. 150, yeah, about 150mm. So relatively decent size, but nowhere near the size of what we've got on board the Russian cruiser. Now, the Omaha class and the Emden, of course, were slightly later designs, so they're a bit more modern ships. But the sheer caliber of those 180mm is just terrifying. As you can see, very decent penetration with both the AP and HE rounds. They're designed for really long range, and they were designed for long range barrage basically, and that's why they're such a big sort of caliber of shell as well. They were designed for basically barraging of the land, and that's what they were used for basically. This is what this boat ended up doing most of the time. So yeah, it's a relatively cool ship, but it is quite an old ship, so it's not going to be as maneuverable or sort of fast, I suppose, as the Emden and the Omaha. But it should be relatively competitive. You just don't want to get hit by those big guns. Now, of course, those big guns are going to be relatively slow traverse speed as well, so it's going to have some disadvantages. The other disadvantage of this boat is it's just very big as well. As you can see, it's a very big cruiser. It's got a crew of 878, almost a 900-man crew on board. So, again, this is a very big ship we're talking about. This is getting more towards sort of the heavy cruiser style of things, and that's generally what the Russians had, was sort of more heavy cruisers. It's still technically a light cruiser because of the armour, but it's, you know, it's a decent size, and this thing is going to be an interesting thing to see actually in game. 9,400 tons as well. It's it's a big boat. Let's just see. So it's almost got double the crew of the Omaha, as you can see. Still, it's almost 1,000 tons heavier as well. So as you can see, what I mean by the sort of heavy cruiser aspect of it is very much of that sort of thinking. And then if we look at the Emden, again, only a crew of 500 and a much lighter boat. The Emden is a much smaller ship. And you can see that it's a very condensed boat, and this is more of your light cruiser, whereas things like the Russian ship that we just got is very much that heavy cruiser style. The Krasny Kavkaz, you know, although it's technically a light cruiser, it's getting towards the heavy cruiser variant. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Enjoyed me just prattling on, basically. Switching through there, as you can see, my windows. Yay, you can see all my windows open. So yeah, it's just a bit of a look at the tech tree. I will talk more once I've actually played them a bit more and tested them out, and you know, that garbage. Naval's just been, oh gosh, it's been a headache. But I will let you know how it goes. This is, I actually now know what I bought when I bought that that ship pack back in, like, 2 years ago or whatever it was. It was the PR1124 MLRS. So yeah, I did buy this ship back in the day, back when Navy was announced to get into the closed beta. So yes, I finally do get to use it at last. It's been a while. So I will let you know how that goes when I do use it. But I will just do one quick test sail out just to show you what I mean about the tank guns on it being somewhat problematic. So you will get a bit of an understanding of what I mean. So as you can see, it's not the slowest traverse speed for the tank gun, but as we do traverse that, of course, our Katyushas go around as well. So we'll try and anti-aircraft just going off, so we'll try and aim at this S-38 here. We'll aim right there. So we've got a good hit on the torpedoes, but remember, this guy's going to be peppering us with autocannon fire. So 2 hits and we've managed to take out 2 compartments, but that is a very slow fire rate, as you can see. So just the reload rate on this is just very, very slow. And that can be problematic in naval because things are moving around fast. Now the other thing, of course, I'm sure you're wanting to see are the Katyushas. And, well, the Katyushas are a little bit hilarious. Aiming them is, I'm pretty sure I can actually switch to a better aim. And if my controls were working, it would be even better. Why rockets are? What? Oh, depth charges. Oh, I see. Depth charges are left control. It's changed my buttons around. Interesting. Mines. That's a new... I've not seen that button in there before. Interesting. Looks like we're going to get mines. Okay. That's an interesting thing. Anyway, Katyushas. Stalin's organ, as you can see. Basically, you can't see what the hell you're doing, and aiming them is just really luck of the draw, because you've also got the boat moving around. So you could fire off a full, basically, salvo an S-class boat, and you're not going to kill it. As you saw, I got a few hits there on that already damaged S-class, and I couldn't kill it. Now, another problem is at close range. So right now, let's aim at this S-class, and let's shoot it as you can see, we can't actually hit it at the moment. I could hit possibly the crew section. There we go, we finally got a hit in there. But I can't hit lower than that because the depression on the gun is really bad. So if you're fighting at close quarters, you're basically stuck. As you can see here, we're unable to actually depress low enough to shoot this German boat. So yeah, another problem with the tank guns. There we go, we actually got a hit in that time. But the one thing with them is, you know, especially if you switch to the armor piercing shell, is you will be able to penetrate destroyers. Now, you're not going to do a great deal of damage to them, but you're going to be able to penetrate destroyers pretty easily, and also cruisers as well. So, as a gun platform, if you can get yourself in a good position, you're going to be quite deadly to these boats. You know, especially if you hit the ammo section of the boat or something like that, because you're going to continuously pen them. And that can be really problematic for them, at least. It's going to be more annoying than anything. You're not going to do huge amounts of damage. As you can see there, we're not really causing huge amounts of damage there. But we are causing enough damage to sort of make it problematic. And if we did get a hit right on that ammo, we possibly could kill the ship outright. So it's not all bad news with these guns, but they're not going to be very good for really knife fighting enemy sort of light ships, basically. Alright, so with that said and done, I'm going to end this video. It's coming up to 52 minutes now, and that's 52 minutes of me talking over crap. So if you've lasted this long, well done, thumbs up to yourself, pat yourself on the back, make yourself a cup of tea and enjoy it. And I will catch you all next time for some more naval stuff and actual naval gameplay as well. Alright, bye bye.